I'm not going to start with any easy questions.
What would you do if you couldn't fail?
I was vulnerable in the sense of I was just who I was.
In my journey as an entrepreneur, I've really found who I am as a human.
I was much more emotionally available to everyone because I was much more balanced.
Finding the grace and the humor in the balance of it all.
Whatever happens in the gut happens in the brain, and whatever happens in the brain happens in the gut.
Do you have a specific morning routine?
I was able to sort of reset my nervous system by getting involved with the cold.
Allow ourselves to have imperfection.
Absolutely had mentors, absolutely 100% had coaches.
A wake-up call to me that I could not try to be something I'm not.
Seeing results of just isolating the breathing was having these tremendous impacts on my physiology.
Work at a gratitude practice.
What the hell am I doing? Can I really do this? Is this really worth it?
90+% of the decisions that we make today actually stem from fear.
When was I proud of myself today?
I think for me, it's really inspiring people to step out. And you don't have to step all the way out.
Then there are these other moments of magic and joy.
If we can just push into discomfort, we actually find that on the other end, there's a lot of benefit.
What's your purpose?
Nothing starts without a plan. Nothing ever goes to plan.
I think we're going to see a new realm of healing that ultimately wasn't available to us.
If we can bring a practice into our lives that helps us be more vulnerable.
So much of entrepreneurship, I truly believe, anybody on this call is grit.
I got involved with Wim. I just love the guy. He's just a great human. When people are on the path, they shine.
We so often convert things into flaws as opposed to strengths.
We all deserve to be happy, healthy, and strong.
I'm so thrilled that this content is getting out there, that you guys are promoting bold and vulnerable message and aspirations for people, because I hope that we can all really live that every day.
Hey, this is Jessica.
And Svetlana, and you're listening to the Bold and Vulnerable podcast,
where we aim to inspire others to live authentically through sharing the bold and vulnerable stories of peak performers across a variety of industries.
Our guest speaker today is a badass woman making strides and proving that anything can be accomplished. Not only is she a trailblazer in her industry that's recognized as 40 under 40, she's taken her company, Point Solutions Group, to $4 million in just 2 years. And most importantly, she's accomplished major milestones while raising 2 beautiful babies with the support of her wonderful wife. Everybody, meet Paige Goss.
This is an exciting episode for us because it's our first episode to launch our podcast, the Bold and Vulnerable podcast. And we could not do it without our first guest, Paige Goss. Paige is a mentor of mine. She's a CEO, which encompasses so much of her talent as an operational execution master who works with large enterprise customers in an almost all male-dominated industry in technology and professional services. She was just named the SIA 40 under 40 for 2018, and she's an overall badass, a female entrepreneur role model, and I barely brushed the surface of who Paige is. So Paige, I will let you give a quick intro of who you are and how you got started with Point Solutions Group.
Yeah, and thank you, Svetlana and Jess, for having me. And obviously, I've known Jess for a very long time. Back to the first meeting I had with Jess, I don't think I'll ever forget it. In pops this like 4'0" ball of just complete fire and drive. And I walked out of the interview. I said, we got to hire her. I don't know that she has a clue what we do or how to do it, but we got to hire her. So, I guess when you know, right? So I'm really grateful to be on today. And a little bit, who am I? I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a mom. I'm a wife. And those things probably in the wrong order. So I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm somebody who wants to give back to the women's community and entrepreneurial community through teaching, coaching, speaking, and working with people to chase the dreams that I've so fortunately had an opportunity to chase. So I launched Point Solutions Group back in April of 2017. We're an IT services system implementation staff aug firm. We actually do quite a bit more like full service technical delivery than the prior company, the Select Group that I was with for 10 years. And, we're growing and thriving and trying to make it happen. And at the same time, I think I've realized what's important in life, and it's balance and awareness in who you are as a person and what matters to you. And I think in my journey as an entrepreneur, I've really found who I am as a human, which has been pretty cool.
Thanks for sharing. And I just love your journey. I've seen it. So it's so near and dear to my heart, but I'm so excited for us to share. So I'm not gonna start with any easy questions.
Of course not.
I think that the biggest thing, since there are a lot of entrepreneurs that are a part of our mastermind, from what I read, I did some homework, so correct me if any of this information is a little off, but from what I read, you guys at Point Solutions Group are growing to 4 million in just 2 years. So I wanted to kind of pick your brain on how you got started from scratch to growing that much in just that 2-year span, and how you've really navigated the processes of, being almost every single employee that you need to be. So I know that you've been doing operations, you've been doing tech, you're doing sales, you're literally doing the job of, probably 50 people right now, payroll. I mean, I know you're doing everything because I know you. So I just wanted to have you paint a picture of what that entrepreneurial life looks like, because I think sometimes it's really beautified online or on Instagram, and people don't realize the hard work that actually goes into building a company from scratch, and maybe even some challenges that go into that. So I guess that's 7 questions in one, but how you went from that 0 point to that 4 million point, and take as long as you want to get anything in there.
Yeah, it's such a dynamic, good question, Jess. And so I think the start, right, when any entrepreneur, in my opinion, says, okay, I'm going to do this, you have to have some pretty real moments with yourself of what does that mean, right? What does that mean financially? What does that mean for your relationships? What does that mean for your family? What does that mean for you, for your health, for everything, right? And in the real moments in those conversations, sometimes are not pretty. I will never forget, when I finally made the decision and I was going to launch, I had to have a conversation with my wife and saying, I might not be able to pay myself for a really long time. What does that look like? How are we going to manage? What sacrifices are we going to make? And that's a real conversation, right? And certainly not an easy one to have. And then the next piece is, okay, really, can I do this? And I still have that same conversation with myself probably once or twice a week is, what the hell am I doing? Can I really do this? Is this really worth it? And, at the end of the day, the answer is yes, because I believe in what we're doing. I believe in myself to the level of I can really do anything I put my mind to. And my wife is amazing in her support. And our kind of mantra is, if anybody can do it, you can. So if I'm having a really bad day, if I'm having a challenging day, if I'm having a struggle internally in my mind, whatever it may be, it's like, hey, if anybody can do it, you can. And so, I think you have to have those real conversations with yourself, and then with your family, with your significant other. You have to have the real conversation with yourself about the market. Are you doing something different, or are you just one of 5 bazillion in my case? And then, you really then say, okay, what am I trying to accomplish? And from there, I kind of worked backwards. So I said, I know what I'm trying to do. I know the types of businesses that I want to go after. And I worked myself backwards into how do I start prospecting? How do I put myself out there? And I'll tell you, I moved to Denver to launch the business in April of 17. So we'll hit that $4 million mark just in I guess, 21 months, right? Maybe potentially over that 4 million mark. And so I really looked at it, and I couldn't say I'm going to hit 4 million in 2 years. But what I could say is I'm going to get 15 new meetings, because when I moved to Denver, I didn't know a single person, right? So I had to start small and then work up, knowing that the more people I met, the more I put myself out there, the more opportunity I was going to give myself and ultimately the organization. But those days were very hard. I mean, and I hope this isn't a PG rated podcast, but I'll never forget sitting in my office and literally it was me and a computer. And I said, what the hell have I done? And what am I doing? And why am I doing this? And it was really just, it was amazing. And so then, once I got kind of past that, I started marching forward, and now we've got great accounts and we're doing some really cool stuff that's ultimately making an impact on women in tech, diversity in tech, women entrepreneurs, right? I've spoke on a number of podcasts. I've now spoken on a number of panels and at events. And, we're really putting ourselves in a position to be recognized, to change the shape of what it looks like to bring diversity and team dynamics into technology.
I appreciate you bringing that latter piece of it up, because I think it's so important for not only entrepreneurs to hear that you have that support system behind you, your wife, Lizzy, saying, if anyone can do it, you can, you've got this. So you've got those positive affirmations coming your way, even when you're in a point where you're like, whoa, what am I doing? Right. And, I think that that's so important to have that support system, whether that's, a family member or a mentor, whoever it is, it's going to pull you out of those ruts when you're starting a business. And the second piece of it, just what you're doing for women in the community. And it's a really big passion of yours. So I would love for you to maybe touch on some of the diversity pieces of it and some of the just minority in business. I know that you took a lot of time to get DBE certified and all of that stuff that goes into it from a legal standpoint. But I think that you're really breaking barriers in the industry. I mean, and if anyone on this call isn't familiar with the staffing industry or, managed services or technical services, these companies are mainly run by men. There's not a lot of women in the space. And I think Paige really stepped out of the box there and said, I can do this really well, and I can make this an industry where females are creating a difference. So I know that she had that vision when she started. So just anyone who doesn't know that, this is huge. Paige has been able to create this company and the success that it's had in such a short time. I would love for you to touch maybe on more of that diversity and how you guys are pushing that needle forward for women in tech. I would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's, so diversity in tech, right, as a whole, women in tech, women in management, women in leadership, those all, I think collectively, even though all very different, are huge passions of mine. And I think, to your point, Jess, I had that vision before I launched the company, and that we can go do this. We can, and I say we because it's not me at the end of the day, right? It's my team. It's the customers that believe in us, the customers that give us a chance. It's absolutely a we. And so, I really like the opportunity that I've allowed us to kind of surface some of these issues, surface some of these challenges. And I think for me, it's really inspiring people to step out. And you don't have to step all the way out, right? You don't have to step and do the craziness that I did, move across the country, have twins, launch a business, right? Looney Tunes. And I know that. What I'm challenging people to do is step just one step further than what you think's possible. Step to the direction that you wouldn't normally step. Push a little bit in an area that you wouldn't normally push. And what I think people will see, and what we've been able to do with our business so far with women in tech, is that every step we take pushes it a little bit further, right? It pushes the conversation. It allows people to ask questions. And I think through education and questions comes awareness, and then comes change. Right. And so those two things combined with what we've done in our own customers, right, in the market that's extremely technical, right? We've got security engineers that are females. We've got software developers working on major DoD programs that are women, and diverse women at that. So I think it's amazing, but every step matters. You can't take it down in one whole swoop. You've got to take one step at a time.
I love that. And I think also, in addition to the diversity piece, I know you mentioned, I don't even think I touched on too much, that you were having twins while you opened your company. So literally you moved across the country, you started a family shortly after getting married. And I think that it just is a testament to your hard work and your grit. And I think that also it's a really good message out there for people who think that they can't do it. Oh, I've taken on too much. Because I think that really the message that I'm hearing and that I feel from you is that you weren't fulfilled in what you were doing, and you found this ultimate fulfillment through your family and through your wife and having this really, really good foundation set up. And then you were like, okay, yeah, I'm going to start my business now because my family life rocks. And now I've got twins and my career is, third to that, but it's still such a passion. And I think that's something that you didn't have when you and I were working together. And I'm so excited just to even talk to you because you're just so lit up and it's amazing. And it's a testament to that. So I wanted to point that out. But in addition, I love what you're doing with diversity. I think it's amazing. So that being said, I don't know if that is your biggest challenge or hurdle that you've had. I'm sure it's not. But what would you say would be the biggest piece of adversity, the biggest challenge or hurdle in creating your company that's led to the biggest success? Maybe something that you thought was really, really hard at the time, but then afterwards you were like, okay, that had to happen for this to be successful.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things, a couple big challenges with any company that starts up, right? One is just pure finances. How am I going to make it happen from a financial perspective? And I'll tell you, if you think about finances as a detriment, it will be a detriment. If you think about finances and the opportunity, or finances as an opportunity, it will be an opportunity. And so one of the things that I would encourage everybody to do is look at the financial components of it as an opportunity, not as a detriment or a challenge, because it will be if you let it, right? And then the second really is people. And it's funny because we're in the people business in a way. We're in the technical services people side of things. And one of the biggest challenges for me, and one of the mistakes I made, honestly, is I made some pretty large investments in people initially when I started the firm. I hired some very high level talent, some extremely, well-connected, talented people that were very tenured in their career. And ultimately, that wasn't what we needed. It wasn't what was going to help us where we were at the time. Not that they weren't going to be able to help us, just not at the time, right? And so if you think about the money, the time, the energy, everything, that could have been seen as a huge obstacle, a detriment to the business. Some people probably would have given up at that point. But, I just kind of pushed through and said, hey, it's not that they were the wrong people. It was the wrong time for them and their skill sets. And I had to do some pretty big sessions and thinking and evaluating, and really came to the conclusion that, I needed to sell. I needed to push harder than I'd ever pushed before selling. I needed to build team members, and I needed to grow from the ground up. And that decision we saw come to fruition second, third, and fourth quarter, where we just exploded. And now, we've got a really great rhythm. We've just got some unbelievably talented individuals on the team currently that are challenging themselves and pushing the boundaries and really going to do some cool stuff coming in the next year.
This whole story, it's so inspiring. Like everything that you're talking about is like super inspiring, the whole process and like where you are now. Can you sort of paint a picture for people that are, I'm not sure, I think Jess sort of touched on this, but sort of paint a picture for like, you reverse engineered everything backwards. You're like, okay, so I had the vision, I knew what I wanted, and then I went backwards, right? So It's like for somebody that's just starting out, that's scary because they're like, oh, she's here and like, I'm all the way over here. How do I even do that? And you said something that I think is so key. It's the selling part, right? Like that's essentially like what it is. So can you kind of like walk us through a little bit, like some of the sacrifices and some of the, the beginning stages?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to. So you're asking me really to give you my secret sauce of starting and growing a business. And I don't know that it's secret sauce. That's why I'm kind of laughing. So the process, I shared a little bit about it. So when you have this goal and you have a dream, and I truly believe nothing starts without a plan. Nothing ever goes to plan, right? So you have to have a plan. You need to know what you're trying to accomplish. So I created a 2-year forecast, and that's exactly what it was from scratch. I knew enough about the business to give myself a good roadmap of, hey, what do I think is possible? So I had 2 years initially before I even started the business. And I said, okay, if in 2 years I want to have X number of employees, then in 1 year I need to have X, right? And obviously you're going to build your curve to where it's slower, much, much slower. And I will tell you, lesson learned, much slower in the beginning and then ramps. So I looked at employees, and then I looked at sales volume. So I couldn't yet look at, again, I said, if you look at finance as a detriment, then it will be. And so what I looked at was top line revenue, because I was only going to be able to influence that to the most degree, where I couldn't necessarily influence the bottom line. I didn't know yet. So I did have a bottom line number in mind, but I really was looking top line. So Svetlana, to answer your question, I looked at that 2-year revenue number that I had out there. And then I said, okay, what's my 1-year revenue number? And then I said, okay, what's my first quarter? And then I put a plan in play to get to that first quarter. So that plan was all about meeting people for me. So I knew nobody. So I put myself out there. I used LinkedIn. I used networking events. I used cold calling. We call it creating cash in At Point Solutions Group. So we don't say cold calling because it comes with such a bad connotation, but creating cash, right? So we create cash by calling and email, whatever it was, right? So everybody asked me, how'd you do it? I was like, I pounded the streets. So talk about rejection, right? Talk about, oh, congrats, way to go, way to start your company. Yeah, I can't help you. Over and over and over, right? So I just kept pounding. And eventually I got a couple breaks. I got a couple companies. I got a couple introductions, people that knew me. And then from there, I continued to pound. And really the pounding has been a great thing, but it's also a hard thing, because now all of the relationships that I've created, now I'm at the point where I need to pass those off to team members, and that's hard, right? That's a next step in passing the work that you've done to other people to manage and grow, and so I can continue to sell. But I had those numbers in mind, and I just kept asking for business. I think too often we go out and we meet people and then we just let it sit, or we don't do anything with it. So I believe personally, there's never a bad connection. There's bad follow-up. And if you don't follow up, if you don't have action items, if you don't ask for business, if you don't ask for introductions, you're only hurting yourself. So I literally went from a 2-year number and I backed it into how many people do I need to meet, and I just pounded the streets as hard as I could.
I feel like I'm talking to the female version of Gary Vee right now. She's just like, hustle.
Yeah.
Knock on doors.
Seriously. So much of entrepreneurship, I truly believe, to anybody on this call, is grit. If you have grit and you have grind, and I mean those two things, like sincerely grit and grind, then just grit your teeth and go for it if you believe in yourself and you believe what you're doing.
Love that. Thanks for that question, Svetlana. That was amazing. We got some good nuggets there.
I've got more, honestly, like right after you answer the question, I'm like, how did you get over the delegation process? Like delegating, because that's tough, in the beginning. And then, how do you stop doing everything yourself?
Yeah, I'm terrible at this. Ask Jess. She's known me for a long time. This is still my biggest challenge. My wife laughed at me. She's like, haven't you been getting this feedback for like your entire career? And I said, yes, I have. And that's the hardest part, right? It's not trust. I trust my team. It's, I have certain things I want them to focus on, which means I ultimately do the rest. But that's not necessarily the best recipe for success. I'll tell you that. So I'm learning. I'm in the process right now of hiring an operations kind of assistant for me. I had the conversation literally with my CFO this morning. That was the first step, right? I actually hired a CFO. I took the financial risk again, and I looked at it as an opportunity. If I have somebody else looking at the numbers, somebody else helping me with planning, then I'm going to be better off. Even though I know how to do it, it's not where I need to be spending my time. So I think ultimately, Svetlana, to answer your question, I looked at it with regards to time. If I only have 10 hours a day, right? Let's say that's what I'm going to allocate to work, because I do want to spend time with my kids. I spend an hour in the morning with them every morning, and I spend 2.5 hours with them every night. So if I get that time right, and I shut down and I spend that time, and I've got all this other time to work and push, what is the best use of that time? And so I had to say, the best use is me creating cash, right? The best use is me training my salespeople. The best use is me following up on collections, right? Because that's cash back into the business that I can do stuff with. And then the best is creating long-term strategic relationships. So I looked and I said, okay, what else is there? And I was like, oh dear God, that's a lot. I got to find somebody else to help me. And that's what I did. am doing. I am not there yet. And I'll tell you, I still struggle with that and trying to do it all myself. But that ultimately as an entrepreneur will stifle your growth.
Yeah, I've definitely. Thank you for that answer.
Sure.
Jess, I'll let you ask the other stuff. I know you've got questions.
No, you're fine. I actually have a follow-up to what you just mentioned, because you mentioned spending time in the morning with your kids. Do you have a specific morning routine that you go through? Is there something that you get up and do every morning, or is it kind of just, you've got babies, right? So like unpredictability right there. So how do you manage that morning routine?
Yeah, so we do have a morning routine. I'm in charge of diaper duty every morning, so that's a fun time. We kind of laugh because my wife changes diapers all day long, so I have morning diaper duty. But I do have a routine, and we get up around 5. The whole family. Unfortunately, my kids are early risers, just like my wife, so I've had to kind of jump into that bandwagon. So we get up and we. That's really our time as a family. So we play, we do coffee, we talk about our day. Lizzy and I talk about kind of what's going on for the day. And really for me, that's putting me in the mindset of creating for the day, right? My daily design, if you will, in my head of what am I going to accomplish? What do I have going on? And putting out into the world what I want to happen for the day. If it's, to land a deal, to close a deal. I've got a huge meeting later on today. This morning, I told Lizzy, I was like, I'm going to go land the biggest deal for the company that we've had to date. So, that type of language we use every morning, that type of prep. And then, I also have started to meditate. That was a big change for me. And really, if you think about everything that we have going on as entrepreneurs, myself with the kids, and you can spin and you can spin fast, right? And all of a sudden, you're not grounded and you're not where you want to be as an individual, which I think is critically important as an entrepreneur, a mom, a wife, whatever it may be. So I've really tried to do that. And then, I've actually cut back on alcohol, which has been a big change in my life recently. As much entertaining as I do and as many events and things, I said, you know what? Like, this is all great and I'm going to continue to do this, but I don't need to do this with as much alcohol. So that's been a pretty big change as well. And so, I kind of got off track, but morning routine. And then ultimately it's really life routines, right? Life changes and life balances that I think when you're a crazy entrepreneur, you have to think about what's most important. And Lizzy and I have talked, and I've, kind of had the internal conversation of, if I'm not healthy, then I can't be healthy for my kids. I can't be healthy for my wife. And I certainly can't be healthy for the organization.
Well, I love that. I love that you're spending that time and just almost creating your day together as a family too. And diaper duty, of course, right?
Yeah.
You can't get out of that one.
Expensive. So maybe that's why I'm selling so hard right now.
Exactly. You've got this purpose behind it.
Exactly.
So I want to veer off a little bit, because I know we've been kind of focusing on the specifics of the business, and I want to switch it around and focus more on you and your individual development that you've gotten. And I think I've probably asked you this a million times before, and I know we've talked about it because you're a mentor of mine and have been in the past. But I think that the biggest thing is that in order to be successful, you have to have mentors. So I wanted to pick your brain on, do you have a coach of some sort? Do you have mentors? Who are the people that you're working with or that you're leaning on to help you move forward in certain areas of your life? And how has that either changed you or not changed you? Who knows?
Yeah, I absolutely. I have people in my life. I have been working with people for a very long time. So when I was previously, I had a number of kind of assigned coaches, right? Assigned mentors. And I'm actually kind of changing the way that I look at it, is that, it may be a mentor, but it's really a champion. And I look at it as a champion because they're going to champion me into other opportunities, other business goals of mine, other challenges that I have. They're going to champion me to figuring that out. So I have absolutely had mentors, absolutely 100% had coaches. Mac McPartland, who some people know that will potentially listen to this call, Scott Spooner, Sheldon, who's the owner of the Select Group, Jill, both of whom are on my board of advisors. And then, outside of that, now I've met some amazing business owners since I've launched, right? It's a different level of mentorship and guidance and sponsorship and coaching that I receive from them. So there's a guy, Russ Armbrust, who runs a company here locally. They're a customer, but he's a dear friend. So, I really have gotten it now from a lot of different areas. And I look at mentorship as, mentorship, championship coaching as it's holistic, right? So I get as much from my team from that perspective as I do from somebody who's an executive coach, right? I also get as much from another CEO as I hope to give to other CEOs. So I look at it as a holistic kind of ecosystem, if you will, of people marching to make a difference in other people's lives, people marching to make a difference in my case, women entrepreneurs, right? I spoke at a event not too long ago, and there were 120 women there. And it was just amazing, right? They were all wanting to be or currently entrepreneurs. And, if they took one thing away from something I said, then to me, that is me coaching, that is me mentoring. And so I think if people look at that as an ecosystem and holistically, then you don't necessarily have to have one single mentor, one single coach. You get influence and education, opportunity, influence from a lot of different people.
Yeah, and I love that. And I think that it's really great not to have almost like a narrow-minded path with a coach too, because sometimes when you work with one coach for so long, you're not getting different blind spots. So I think it's really important to have
perspective,
to have a ton of different angles.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
different perspective, right?
It's
you never know what they're going to bring.
And it's kind of like the whole point of a mastermind. That's why masterminds are so awesome. Like, and the board of advisors, like what you brought up, when you have different people from different industries coming in and looking at your business or looking at whatever, your project you're working on, and they're giving you their perspective. And it's just like, they see things differently from the way that we see them. And it's such an amazing resource to have,
Absolutely. And now as a business owner, my collective group, there are other business owners, there are influencers in the business community, there are other women. It's really cool. It's really cool. If there's anybody in Denver on this call, like Denver has it figured out from that perspective. Like I came from Raleigh, right? Raleigh's a very integrated community. But when I moved to Denver, the community and the support for entrepreneurship I've never seen anything like it, like I've seen here.
It just reminds me of that quote too. I think it's Eric Allen, but I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up to fact check myself. I'm sure other people on here will fact check me, of course. But it's just that quote that everyone is my teacher. Some I attract and some I subconsciously attract. And I think that you just said it, like sometimes even your teammates are the teachers in your life, and people in the community of Denver are the teachers in your life, or these other business owners are the teachers in your life. So it doesn't have to be somebody that is labeled a coach. It can be really anyone that you're gathering all of this like diverse information from and using it to your advantage. So I think that it's really cool that you've cultivated a way to network. And I know that you've always been really great at networking, but I think for people on this call that are not good at networking, it's really something that I encourage everyone to just kind of put yourself out there, because it's all about who you know, who you meet, and you never know what kind of opportunities that you're going to get from the people that you make connections with it. And I think you touched on it earlier, people will connect and then they won't do anything with that relationship. And I think that Svetlana and I are actually like a really good testament to that. We virtually met. We both went to a Tony Robbins conference. Our companies both had the same type of name. So my company is BOLD LLC. Her company was Be Bold Activewear. And we were on this page with, over 50,000 people on this Facebook page. And we ended up finding each other, went and got coffee together and connected. And now we've started this mastermind business together. So I think that it's just a testament to asking people for coffee, asking people to connect.
Absolutely.
And we wouldn't even have this relationship. We wouldn't even be on this call if Svetlana and I hadn't been really open to doing that, no matter if we were scared or, timid about it, or, I'm not timid, but you know what I'm trying to say. I think that
absolutely. And networking can be intimidating, right? I'm glad you used that. That's a great word to describe it for a lot of people. And so what I'll tell you again, I said earlier, one step at a time. It's one person at a time. Don't go to a networking event thinking, oh my God, I got to meet 30 people, because you don't have to. You need to meet one or two people and then have them introduce you to one or two people. Conversation flows. You then get engaged. And then, at the end of the day, I'll tell you, you never know who somebody knows. So putting yourself out there, and again, here's a caveat, being real about who you are is critical in that situation, because if you're real, they get a sense of who you are, they have a great feeling for what you're doing and the impact that you can make, they will naturally do introductions for you. And that's a critical component of it.
One last question would be, what has been kind of the book or books that you've recently read or have impacted your life the most, or even that you gifted the most to other people? I'm just really curious as to what your reading list is these days, and if you could recommend maybe one book to the group.
Yeah, well, I kind of laughed because I think when you and I talked about that, I said, I should probably start reading some more. With my twins right now, I'm reading Green Garden, and there's a few others. So, most of my time is honestly spent reading kids' books right now. But the biggest, so I got this app called Blinkist, if you guys are familiar with it, and it kind of gives snaps of books and really cool stuff. So I started doing that. Which gives me snippets of some really powerful overviews of books along the way, which has been just great. Probably the book that I've talked about the most is Trust. Another one would be The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. I read that, probably 10 years ago, and it's still to this day one of my favorite books. Another, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Right. So I think that one, Jess, you mentioned the 4-hour work week. I love that. I wish so bad I could do that. I'm working towards it. I've got a goal of by the time I'm 40, that's actually the case. So, I think from a book standpoint and really it's podcasts and things like that I'm starting to transition to. And then the snippets like Blinkist, like things like that I can get in a shorter amount of time just because I'm choosing, again, at the time of my life to spend time with the kids. So as I'm kind of changing my lifestyle, the way I absorb information and books and things like that is also shifting. But I'll tell you, you have to do it. It's a critical component of keeping yourself sharp and motivated and learning, right? Because if you're not growing, you're dying.
One last question. Who is a role model of yours, somebody that you look up to, and someone that you looked up to when you were just starting out? Like that you really needed to just see them, and it's like, if they can do it, I can do it, and right now.
Yeah, I mean, so Sheryl Sandberg, I think Lean In is probably one of my favorite books as well. I spoke about her. I've talked about her, and Jess can attest to this, for a very long time. So she inspired me from a long time ago. I'm a humongous Robin Roberts fan. I think Robin Roberts' message, being existence, is one of passion and growth and giving. So I love her. And then, as a business owner, I recently met a woman that runs a nonprofit here. And, I'm the opposite of a nonprofit runner right now, right? In that I'm very much running a for-profit business. But her story inspired me to tears when I first met her. And so she's kind of kept me grounded in that you don't have to be, Steve Jobs or anybody like that to make an impact, right? I can be me. I can do my business. I can help one person at a time. And that is ultimately what I was put here to do.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you guys again for having me. It's a true pleasure. And Jess, I'm so unbelievably proud of you.
You guys want to connect with Paige at LinkedIn? Is that the best methodology for you?
Absolutely. Yeah. LinkedIn. We've got LinkedIn page for myself and for the company. And then anybody, just, you can give my email, cell phone number, whatever. Call me, email me, text me. Happy to help in any way I can.
You might be inundated, but
I love it.
I'll send your LinkedIn out. Yeah.
I love it.
For our first podcast episode, we have a surprise for the listeners. Some bonus content for you guys. We asked Paige to come on our live mastermind call and answer some burning questions from entrepreneurs, and she graciously agreed. Here is the bonus audio for you, and we hope you enjoy.
Jess, thank you. I got the text, and I could not answer yes fast enough. This has been a passion of mine to work with other aspiring entrepreneurs and aspiring women leaders for a long time. So I really appreciate you inviting me to talk. And, it's been a fun, wild journey. So I've been in and around entrepreneurship since I could imagine, right? Since I could walk. My parents all have their own companies, and I launched Point Solutions Group. So founder and CEO, we are active right now in Denver. We also have a presence in Washington, D.C. We're doing IT services and managed resource stuff in and around the commercial arena and in government services. So we're doing some stuff with large government integrators, teaming arrangements, partnerships, subcontracting in technical services. So we've created a pretty cool opportunity where we really do much more than what we did at the Select Group. For those of you on the call from the Select Group, much more than just staffing. So we're actually bidding on programs, we're teaming on programs where we have to provide technical solutions and technical applications. We're doing some software development from scratch and a lot of really cool stuff. So I launched the company, and we're now about 12 employees, which has been pretty amazing, both internal and consultants. And dream come true for me, and I'm grateful and really looking forward to any questions you guys have. And hopefully, currently on the call and then after, I'm able to help in any way possible to those of you that are chasing entrepreneurial dreams.
Just so everyone knows kind of what industry you're in, I know there are some people on the call that maybe don't know a lot about technology. So I guess two-part question. One, maybe explaining a little bit about that piece of it to the people that are on the call, what that means, managed services, technical, so what that actually means. And then the second part of it is kind of the meat of what I think a lot of people on the call want to get to is just how you have survived being a woman in technology, and how that's impacted you positively, how you've used it to your advantage, maybe disadvantages, but I see it as an advantage. So maybe kind of explaining exactly what the technology is, and then how it is to be a woman in technology.
Yeah, absolutely. So technical services really encompasses for us kind of 5 individual pieces. In technology, as far as an industry is growing and changing by the day. But for us, it's really software development, application development, and things that come in and around that. It's project management and service delivery within technology, telecommunications, which is everywhere, from the cable that comes into your house to give you internet to what connects the world, right? We also do a decent amount of networking and some security around that. A lot of technology now requires secure development, secure connections, so we can run our credit card on the internet, do a bunch of things. And one of the programs we're currently engaged with is for the 2020 census. And what we're doing is we're helping them transition data from their old school databases and servers into a cloud environment, which basically just means a hosted external cloud environment. And all of that requires security because it's really, really important data, not only for the census, but also for some of the publications and analytics that they're doing. So technology services, not only software development, but also everything that kind of comes around it. And, being a woman in technology, it's interesting. When I got into this, I knew it was going to be a challenge because we were selling to primarily males. We were selling to a dominant kind of, in a way, older environment. And I think it's all about confidence, right? And how you sell yourself, how you sell your organization. And at the end of the day, it's all about delivery, right? Setting realistic expectations. And male, female, regardless, if you set expectations and you deliver on them, I think that being a female gets you in the door a little bit quicker in certain situations, but you also have to fight to be taken seriously. And I think that, as an entrepreneur, I've learned that in multiple facets, but it's certainly been a fun ride so far. And I look forward to kind of what's next along the entrepreneurial journey.
This is probably going to be a meaty question as well, but What made you want to create your own startup? What made you want to be a CEO? And is it everything that you thought it was going to be? And what's different? What's changed within you, I guess?
Yeah, so lots changed in me. So I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I just didn't really know what I wanted to do. But about 2 years ago at the Select Group, I started to realize that, owning your own organization, owning your own firm was much more than just making people rich, right? It was about impacting people's lives. It was about helping facilitate an avenue for people to chase dreams. It was a way to inspire people to do things that they never thought were possible. So I think that's when it really started to become reality for me, that this was my journey, because I started to get inspired by other people making an impact on individuals' lives. So I knew I wanted to do it. I thought I was prepared to do it, but I will tell you, there's nothing in the world that can prepare you for owning your own company. From the 3 a.m. wide awake, what should I have done? What could I have done? To where's the next opportunity? To are we going to make viral? To how did I get myself into this situation? You have every thought under the sun. And I think the important thing is to kind of continue to drive towards your vision, which for me, it's allowing others to do things they never thought was possible. So I've changed a lot. Initially, I thought I was invincible. I was like, this is going to be easy. Yeah, it's not even close to easy. And all of the things that people tell you that you're like, nah, we'll be fine. It's absolutely reality. You think about all of it all day long.
It's so funny that you say that, because I actually read a quote the other day that it said, the only thing that can prepare you to own your own company and run your own business is to own your own company and run your own business. There's literally nothing that can prepare you for that.
No, it's so true, Jess. And you obviously know me. And I was basically an entrepreneur inside of the Select Group. And even that, making every mistake under the sun and learning and growing, it still didn't prepare me for my thought process on a day-to-day basis, owning your own owning your own firm. And I think the cool part is, in what I've been actually really surprised about, is the level of excitement for other people to join an entrepreneurial organization. And when you kind of tell them your story and talk to them about your vision, it's really amazing that people say, yeah, I'm ready. Let's go. Let's do this. And I've had some really amazing people so far join the organization that, it's gonna be a fun ride because of them, not because of me.
How do you plan on dealing with the scaling and growth of your company? And it's probably going to happen before you know it. And maybe you don't have a plan in place, but how do you plan to expand? Because I know that you want to. So if there's people on the call that maybe own their own business, and it's a small business, maybe same thing as Paige, maybe have like 10 or so employees, what advice could you give for planning to expand and how that would look?
Yeah, so I think expansion can be in a couple forms, right? It can be through acquisition, which in certain situations is more viable than others. It can be through geographic expansion, which is obviously what my prior company did. And I think for us, it's going to be a combination of geographic expansion based on customer need, and then, just expansion into kind of close markets or similar services. So for us, government services, right, you can get into subcontracting, you can get into teaming, you can get into priming contracts, which, all distinctly different. So a really great expansion kind of plan for us is to start in the subcontracting teaming arrangement, and then eventually get into prime contracts, which will naturally expand the footprint of what we do, the services we offer, the revenue that we can produce, etc. So, I think if you're looking at expanding and you have your own business, you need to either follow customers or follow similar services. But you need to do it strategically, right? And for me, right now, my number one priority is hiring really great people and managing cash. And if you can do those two things, I think any entrepreneur, if they put enough time and effort into it, will be successful.
So another question for you, just because I have my own life coaching company, so I'm really big on life coaching and coaches and mentors in general. You've been a great mentor to me personally. So first, thank you for that. But I guess for everyone else on the call, maybe tell us a little bit about who your mentors are and how they've impacted you and how it kind of keeps you on the right track to be successful.
Yeah, and thanks, Jess. In order to be a great mentor, you have to have great mentees. I truly believe in that. You have to be willing to challenge yourself, right? So, throughout my career, I've had great mentors. Sheldon, the owner of the Select Group, being one of them. I also have had, tremendous opportunity to work with a gentleman by the name of Mac McPartland. I actually still to this day work with him. I had great, really what you would consider true executive coaches, teaching and challenging more business fundamentals than kind of personal fundamentals. And, along the way, I've met a ton of female entrepreneurs that are willing to put themselves in a situation to help you, give you advice. I recently, probably some of you saw, I've officially got our WeBank certification, which is a really big deal for us. As a women-owned organization, and there's women inside of that that group here locally to Denver that I've worked with and called and engaged with to say, hey, this is the situation. What would you do? And I think the part about coaching and continuous development and learning is all about being vulnerable and admitting that you don't know everything and asking for help and asking for advice and not being afraid to kind of put yourself out there on the skinny branches and see what's possible. And in order to do that, you've got to, one, like I said, be vulnerable, but two, have people that you trust to give you, the answer that you don't always want, but that you probably need.
I love that. It's so funny because sometimes entrepreneurs want to think like, I got this, I can do this on my own. Like you said, I'm invincible. Like this I'm fine. I got this in the bag. And you come to realize that the more community and the more support that you have and the more you actually reach out for help and for advice, people are so willing to give, number one, but also it just helps you, it helps you grow, helps you stay sane. I know that you probably feel the same way, but
I always heard it's lonely at the top, but it's really lonely at the top. If you really know yourself and you look deep down and say, hey, I don't have all the answers, and I'm not going to have all the answers, but if I can bring really intelligent, good people around me, we collectively will find the answers. And I think that that's what's needed to be not only successful as an entrepreneur, but just successful in life, right? You've got to surround yourself with people that make you better every day.
One more question, just because I've had this similar experience just moving across the country 4 different times, but I know that you just made a really big move from Raleigh to Denver, which is a completely different culture, completely different people that you're selling to. You're selling again, kind of, as a CEO too. So I guess maybe how was that like move for you, and then culture shock, and like how did you deal with all of that, and then also starting a company at the same time? Just crazy to me. So I think I'm a bit loony, honestly. But the move was strategic initially, and my wife and I, we really decided like, hey, this is a great move for us as a family first. And so I knew that I had that support in doing it and making the move, which made it a whole lot easier. And I think as you grow and as you start in a new location, it's really all about your own confidence and, willingness to put yourself out there. You don't have these huge networks. I didn't know a single person. So I didn't have a network to rely on. I didn't have prior business to rely on. So I knew that it was going to be a matter of, me putting myself out there and, every day grinding, asking everybody I meet, who else should I meet? What other opportunities are here? I'll tell you, there's a couple women-centric organizations I've become a part of, which has been phenomenal. In our industry, there's Women in Cable Telecommunications, which is called WICT. There's Sim Women, which I'm now an active part of. There's a lot of really cool organizations. And,
in Raleigh, I didn't necessarily have to do that, but here I do. And it's been tremendous. And, I think even more so than going to those events, it's when you're at those events, not being afraid to really put yourself out there. And I kind of made a game with myself of how many business cards could I hand out and how many names could I get. But it really helped kind of facilitate the start to what we're doing now and really, building some core business in a brand new market. And as a new company, I'll tell you, I don't know if I would do it again, but I'm here now, so we're going to make the best out of it.
It looks like it's all about the networking and the outreach and the community and building around that, and not thinking I can do this all by myself, which I think a lot of people try to do when they're first starting. But let me open up the floor to everyone else who's on the call. Does anyone have any questions? Don't be shy, everyone.
Hey, Paige, this is awesome. This is my first time on this call, so this is actually pretty cool. So I have a couple questions, but I'm going to limit it to just one.
Please.
So you said the biggest thing that you're learning is it's about hiring great people and managing cash. So what I'm curious about is anytime someone says hey, here are the top 2 things that I think are important, what that says to me is they had some sort of learning experience around that. And I'm wondering, just open-ended, I'm curious if you learned about what risks you want to take, or if you did research trying to figure things out, or if you invested in certain things, or if you've been conservative from a managing cash standpoint. Or with hiring great people, what have you learned about that, especially in a startup when everyone's wearing so many different hats?
Yeah, so really good questions. I'll address the people side first. So, in my opinion, the sign of a great entrepreneur, owner, CEO, president, whatever you call yourself, is your ability to inspire and hire, right? So if you can hire great people that excel in areas that you don't, your likelihood of succeeding, it drastically increases. So, a lot of times entrepreneurs, we're really good at something, right? And for me, I found that I'm not necessarily really good at one thing, but if there is something that's important for me to be really good at, it's hiring. And I was burned. So, I've even learned the importance of hiring really quickly. Even owning my own company, I hired a director, really expended a lot of cash, put a lot of eggs in one basket, and she made it 3 weeks and quit. So, I was really early on in owning the company, and I was pushing, and, I had spent 6 weeks in money and et cetera. And all of a sudden I was left again by myself. So I think, really understanding what you're looking for and what a good fit looks like is critically important. So yeah, I've learned a lot of lessons with that, right? I also learned that it's the select group. And when you have a small team and you're growing an organization, you need people that are willing to dig in and do the things that it takes to get the job done, regardless of the title, regardless of the compensation. And those people are the ones that as an entrepreneur you want to find. So I think that directly ties to cash, right? In my opinion, if you're going to spend cash, you spend cash on people. You invest in people, you invest in development, you invest in teaching and training, because the people are what's going to take you to the next level. I've also hired ahead of the business. I didn't think at the select group that I really believed in that. But now starting my own firm, I really do. You have to invest in hiring more than the business holds initially, so that you're not caught in a situation where you overpromise and underdeliver, right? Brand is critically important. You only get one shot at that. So if you spend cash to hire great people, but at the same time make decisions if they're not working so that you don't waste cash, it's critically important. So those are some of the lessons I've learned with cash and with people.
Thanks, Paige.
You're welcome.
What do you think has been your biggest challenge so far since you've been in Colorado and started your company? So,
Alyssa, I think the hardest challenge, and you hear it right every day, is balancing everything that I'm trying to do, from prospecting new business, from teaching and training and getting people promoted, hired, and then really just all of the nuances that come with owning a business, from, invoicing to making sure you hit payroll, to onboarding people, to, making sure that there's coffee creamer in the refrigerator. I think the the balance of where am I spending my time is probably the biggest challenge. I think another big challenge that you and I have talked about is our lack of business in Colorado, right? We've got business across the country. We just don't have a lot of local business. And that keeps me up at night. So I think our ability to grow our local talent and our local business is going to be really important to our growth trajectory.
Awesome. Thanks. And thanks for the creamer.
You're welcome. I've actually been failing on that.
Paige, and I have a quick question just about balance. I know you're kind of gung-ho right now, so you might not be able to answer this the way that maybe you would want to or would love to in an ideal world, but how do you balance your personal time? I know you mentioned Lizzy earlier, so how do you balance your time with Lizzy? How do you balance that personal time then with your owning your own business, being a female entrepreneur? I know a lot of times that's a big struggle. So especially if you're people that have families, have kids. I know one of my friends from Massachusetts is on the call right now. She's got a little girl, and I know that she struggles to balance that time between work and play. So I wanted to throw that question out there for you because I know some people on the call are probably thinking about that.
So I've got a great support structure in Lizzy, and she knows that this is my dream. So I think one of the things that I've really realized is that if I take care of myself, if I do things that are important to me, family time, working out, relaxing, even though none of you would expect to hear that from me, which it doesn't happen very often. But if I do those things, I'm a better CEO, I'm a better business owner, I'm a better friend, and I'm certainly a better wife. So I think that, starting the company and knowing everything that was necessary, there still are times where I have to take a step back and say, hey, I'm not taking care of me. And if I'm not taking care of me, I'm not really giving my best to Lizzy or to the business or whoever, right, my customers. So I think, I encourage anybody to really to look at themselves and realize that if they're taking care of themselves, that they're better at the office or better for their customers. And that's where it's really important, in my opinion.
When do you find the time to, do you have a specific routine that's like your jam, like when you work out, or are you just kind of scattered right now? Do you have a ritual that you go through? I
wish I had a ritual. I am a hot mess when it comes to my schedule right now. I've been traveling. I've lived in Colorado 12 weeks. I've only physically been here 6. So from that travel time, I'm doing stuff around the house, and Lizzy tells me my second career is in painting. So, if you guys need anybody to paint a wall, just give me a shout. I do it for cheap. But, I think that it's really important that when I focus on it and I try to really dedicate at least a couple, 2, 3, 4 days if I can to working out and to doing things that I care about, working in my yard, working in my house, and ultimately spending time with Lizzy and then, my soon-to-be twins.
Yeah. Are you excited to have twins?
I'm excited, and, pardon my language for the recording, but I'm scared shitless.
Oh, yeah. I knew you were going to say it.
And Alexis is laughing. I can hear.
She's losing it. Does anyone else have any questions for Paige? Anyone on the line that wants to keep audio through? You don't have to turn your video on. Don't worry. She does invite.
I guess what I'm curious about is more of the, you mentioned a lot about, it's all about confidence. What does that mean to you, confidence? Because I know that's super, if you don't have that, if you don't believe in yourself, right, then how can you expect anybody else? What does that mean to you?
It's such a great question, Svetlana, and I'll tell you, I've had my days where I wake up and I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? I can't do this. I'm not smart enough, blah, 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 right? And you have all these thoughts in your head. And, I think part for me is it's almost a fake it till you become it. So, walking into every situation, I got it. I'm going to ask great questions. I'm going to present myself in a manner that I would be proud of. And when I walk out of any meeting or any conversation with a future customer or a future employee or, future vendor, or current vendor, it's, I don't have anything to be ashamed of. I don't have anything to be scared of. I am who I am. It's why I share about my personal life. It's why I share about, my business in a way that I do, is because if I'm confident and there's people that want to do business with us, they will. Right. And the ones that don't, then there's nothing that I could have done to change that. And as long as I have that mentality in every situation, I know that we're going to be in a good spot.
I love that.
It's not easy. I'll tell you. My wife she's like, you could do this. You got it. And I'm like,
I know.
Sure. I mean, it's really a challenge. But, when you have that support and you look at every day as a new opportunity, there's a lot of great things that come from that.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. I don't know if Jess mentioned, but I have my activewear line, but part of one of the things that inspires me most is I'm a mental and emotional fitness coach as well, because anything that you want to do, starting any business, you have to really you have to nurture that mental and emotional side of you. And for that, it's like, what do you feed your mind every day? What do you read? Who do you surround yourself with? Proximity is power, So I completely agree with confidence. It's like you just saying, I am who I am, and if people like that, then they'll accept it. And if not, then that's fine. You can't base your worth off of, And
I feel that if you're real, you get a lot further with people, right? It might be challenging in the beginning, but if you're real and you're vulnerable, like I mentioned earlier, there's so many more amazing things that come from that than trying to be somebody you're not, or trying to act in a way that you wouldn't normally, right? So, in all of my engagements with Alyssa and some of the people that I have on the team right now, it's, hey, this is who I am. You guys are you're either on the ship or you're not. And I think that really inspires people to kind of look at themselves and say, all right, I'm on. Let's do this. Let's go. Let's see what's possible.
That's beautiful.
That's awesome. Thanks, Paige. And I know you've been really open and honest with us about your life and you and Lizzy, and just for Svetlana and I and anyone else actually that's on the call that's in San Francisco, there's been so much activity here because it's Pride Month. There's been parades, people in the streets. I mean, San Francisco is crazy anyways. But I didn't know if you had a message for any of the entrepreneurs out there that are in the LGBT community, and maybe just messages for people that need to build their confidence, and how maybe you've overcome some obstacles there. I don't know if you have or not. We've never talked about it, but so sorry to spring it on you. But yeah, I'm just curious because San Francisco is such a vibrant area, and there's so much support here, but I know that there's not support in a lot of the other areas and a lot of other cities where people might be entrepreneurs. So maybe touching a little bit on that for the community.
Yeah, I think live and love, right? And if you live and you love yourself and you love the people around you, great things will come regardless of who you are as a business owner, right? And if you really look at that you've got one shot at life, what are you going to do? It's pretty freeing. And so any entrepreneur that is in the LGBT community, I would say go for it, right? Don't ever let that be something that stops you from chasing dreams. And for that matter, don't let anything that might be quote unquote different stop you from doing what you love and what you're capable of. Because, at the end of the day, fear is what prevents us from chasing dreams. So, go for it. And I'll throw it out there to anybody on the call. If there's anybody that wants to talk further one-on-one or has questions for me, I'm more than happy to talk to anybody and share my journey and see if there's any possible way that I can help somebody else do something they didn't think was possible.
So I'm also a mom. I'm hearing a lot of similarities, and just kind of, in terms of grit, I feel like, not to rock the boat or stir the pot too much. I feel like I'm getting this beautiful, sparkly picture of you getting through stuff. But for me as a biracial, queer, single mom with very little support system, I'm all right, I got a serious set of challenges that I have some grit to get through. And it's I think it's so important to like acknowledge the duality of, you know, not just the success, but the struggles, and not focusing on the struggles, but the how of overcoming. That, because to me, that is where the inspiration comes of, you know, if anyone can do it, I can do it. But it's like being able to relate on a very human level of like, wow, stuff can be really challenging. So my question is, you know, perhaps a synopsis or even a piece of like perhaps what could have been like the most challenging, either specific topic or, you know, a couple of topics, and what were the things that really got you through those times?
Yeah, and if I painted a rosy picture, you could probably see me a few days throwing up in my office because I was, you know, overwhelmed and not understanding how to actually move forward, and looking at a bank account and seeing literally $28. So, you know, it's not rosy, but it is, right? Because I chose this. And I think because I chose it, that it allows me to push forward. So for me, the verbiage of choice versus decision. So I chose to start my own company. I didn't decide to leave my prior firm, right? Which I ultimately chose to leave there. But so I think there's been some dark days, right? I mean, I'm a lesbian. I can't tell you how many times I've walked in and people have looked at me. I don't know if you can see me, but I look very young, and I am young, right? But I look much younger than I am. And they look at me like, how the hell would you be able to help me? Why would you know what you're doing? Why would I trust you? And so there's been situations where I've walked in and I had a woman basically tell me when I grew up and learned how to run a business to come back to her, and maybe she would talk to me then. So, you know, there's a special place for women that treat other women like that. But besides that, you know, I think it's not all rosy. It's challenge and it's obstacle after obstacle. But if you look at it, and for me, again, it was the language of, all right, I'm choosing to do this. I'm choosing to push forward. I'm choosing to make 100 creating cash calls today. That really helped me push through. And again, you know, so often I think if we look at where we're trying to go and we're like, oh my God, to your point, I'm a single mom, I don't have any support. And it can be so overwhelming. A lot of times we just kind of shut ourselves down. And so for me, as I looked at that, I was like, okay, what can I accomplish right now? Right? Like sitting in my chair right now, what can I do? Next hour, what can I do? Next email, what can I do? And so I did it literally. I know I have continued to say this, but one step at a time, one conversation at a time, one person at a time. Because if you look at it holistically as an entrepreneur and with everything else you have going on, which praise you, I could not do it without my wife. It can be very overwhelming. And so my advice to you is just one step, one email, one call at a time.
That's super helpful. Thank you.
And you'll likely throw up along the way.
I know. I know what you mean too about the age thing too, where it's like people don't take you seriously, and I'm like, wait a second, but that's good for you for pushing forward. And that is super helpful. You know, it's like we can only do so much, and like, yeah, in the grand scheme of things, we have this huge vision, but none of it's going to get done if I don't just do, you know, what I can do in the next hour. So thank you. That actually
you're so welcome. And I mean, sometimes for me, it's like, I'm not going to do anything in the next hour. I'm going to change a poopy diaper and I'm going to play with a Moana doll. Right. So, you know, that type of decision, we all have them, right? I use my kids because it's top of mind. We all have those silly things, right? That we want to just like, you know, I'm not going to answer some emails for an hour. I'm going to go jump in the leaves. I did that last weekend too. So, you know, it's just those little things that I think almost ground us again and allow us to then, okay, now I got to get back at it. I'm going to go make some more calls. I'm going to go to another networking event or whatever it may be.
Thank you so much, Paige.
Yeah, you're welcome. My pleasure. And good luck with everything. You can do it. If anybody can do it, you can.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paige. I love that you touched on the power of choice there, because that's something that you taught me so long ago. I mean, years ago, maybe even 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
You gave, I went to, it was one event where you were speaking, and you just inspired me so much with the power of choice. And I think that we all get to choose. We get to choose our future. We're not stuck. And I think that there's been multiple times in my professional career where I've felt like I'm stuck and I can't get out of a certain situation. And I think if you step back and you know that you have the power to make those decisions, and then you can take it one step at a time, I think that's such a wonderful message, and it's helped me a ton throughout my career. So
awesome.
Thank you.
And I also love how you said, like, you get to, like, just to kind of piggyback off of that, like, choice and like, you know, you don't call it decision. You made this choice for yourself. And I want to kind of emphasize on the fact that, like, how much you focus on language, you know, like you say, you guys have like language at home, and how that's just so important, because it can sort of influence the rest of your day, how you mentioned with, you know, you can look at finances as a complication or an opportunity. I believe I'm kind of reiterating the words differently, but I love that you said that, because I feel like it's so much a part of our daily lives. You know, if you look at the day as just like, oh God, like, you know, this is going to be bad. Well, then it's like what you said, it's going to be bad then, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Language is so important. And, you know, I don't get me wrong, guys. I'm not great at this. I don't think anybody is. We're humans, right? It's like something I think Mac always says, it's like 8,000 thoughts we have a day, maybe something crazy. And like 79 or 98% of them are bad, and 97% same shit we thought yesterday, right? Something like that. I'm getting those stats all messed up. But the point being, you have to change your internal language. And I'm working on it. It's something I work on every single day. And when we speak to our kids, we work on it. When we speak to each other, we work on it. You know, but it is about how are you looking at it? And are you using the language that's empowering or that's overwhelming? And empowering for me is a much better spot, because trust me, we can overwhelm ourselves at the drop of a hat. It's easy to do. So I think that's an important piece as well.
Well, thanks so much, Paige. We appreciate your time. We appreciate you jumping on the call and just being so open and honest and transparent with us. We have these calls every single week. We have different women, not only business owners and not actually just in technology, but we have different women on the call every single week that we interview, and they just share their knowledge and created this group for women's empowerment. But I think it's really important for women's leadership and just kind of talking about life and how we can all surround each other with a great community of people, and how we can help each other, because I think some calls will resonate with some people and some will resonate with others. But yeah, we're just trying to create a really great community here, and we're so thankful that you've been able to join us. Is there anything maybe last minute that you would want to say about Point Solutions Group, and or before we end the call, anything else you wanted to add for anyone that's listening out there?
Yeah, and thanks again, Jess, for having me. It was great. I think, you know, my final kind of piece to any female leader, anybody aspiring to be an entrepreneur, anybody doing things that are a bit out of their comfort zone, is that life begins at the edge of your comfort zone. So if you push the boundaries, if you test what you're made of, great things will happen. And don't forget that you're capable of doing things that you didn't think you were. And surround yourself with great people, ask for help, and you're going to be pleasantly surprised at what comes out on the other end. And, you know, from Point Solutions Group's perspective, you know, if there's ever an opportunity where we can support any organizations or any people on the call, we would love the opportunity. So please reach out to me, and I'm just grateful for people here on the call and for the opportunity to share my story.
Just sitting here, taking in the gratitude of even just having had this chance to chat with you, Paige. It's been a little while since we've last caught up, and maybe I'll see you in Denver next weekend when I'm out there. But I'm just so grateful that you took the time out of your day, your busy schedule. You're CEO of a top tech company, and you're taking the time out of your day to talk to our little old mastermind. So I just appreciate the time, and I know that there's going to be people on this call, men and women, that are listening, that are going to be inspired by the things that you've said. So I just wanted to thank you before we get off.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm totally inspired as well. Like, you've completely, and just I'm already like in my head thinking like, Jess and I, we can do, you know, we've got this type of thing. Like, if Paige can do it, we can do it.
Totally.
You're a total inspiration. Like,
thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And I'm honored to have spoken with both of you and anybody else that's listening. You can do it. You're meant to do it. You will do it if you put your mind to it.
Thank you for listening to the Bold and Vulnerable podcast. For more information on today's speaker, please visit us at boldandvulnerablepodcast.com.
And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Let's keep spreading the love by being bold and vulnerable. Thank you. We love you.